1995 has become the year of the young Canadians. Jacques Villeneuve and Paul Tracy have won 5 of the 10 races this year. Villeneuve has taken a commanding points lead by virtue of his 3 wins, including last week at Elkhart Lake. He was closely followed by Tracy, the winner of 2 races, but a broken foot suffered 2 weeks ago may cause him to stumble in his run. Still, the young Canadians look to smoke the competition today in the Molson Indy Toronto. We're in Toronto, Ontario, Canada for round 11 of the PPG IndyCar World Series, the Molson Indy Toronto. You know, they've been talking about the close competition in IndyCar racing all season long. Here, the starting grid, the first 10 cars, all within 1/2 a second of one another. Now, Lynn St. James will replace Bobby Unser for the next 2 weeks. And Lynn, that close competition applies to the pit crews, too.
Absolutely. At least 2 races have been determined by the pit stops, and that could very well happen again in Toronto, so watch.
Then, too, we have the possibility of rain here today, Sam Posey.
Well, if it rains, drivers like Gilles de Ferran and Christian Fittipaldi, who raced in Europe last year where it rained a lot, might find themselves at quite an advantage over the Indy regulars who have not raced in the rain for almost a year and a half.
The cars have already started and are moving on the parade laps. Let's take a look at the starting grid on the pole. Jacques Villeneuve, his 3rd pole in a row, comes with a new track record. Jimmy Vasser alongside, the 3rd front row start of the year for the Portland winner. In row 2, it's Teo Fabi, who has never fallen out of a race at Toronto, and Scott Pruitt with his best starting position of the year. In row 3, Bobby Rahal, the winner of the inaugural race in Toronto in 1986, and Michael Andretti, a winner at Toronto in 4 of his last 5 starts. In the 4th row, Robbie Gordon. He won the last race on a street circuit in Detroit. And Al Unser Jr., one of his 2 wins here came from 8th starting position. In the 5th row, Andre Ribeiro. 1 year ago here, Honda scored their best finish ever, a 2nd. And Paul Tracy, who won here on his home circuit in 1993. In row 6, Gilles de Ferran. His best finish of the year was an 8th on the oval at Milwaukee. And Christian Fittipaldi leading the point standings for the Rookie of the Year. In row 7, Danny Sullivan and Mauricio Gugelmin. The 8th row, Adrian Fernandez and Raul Boisel. The 9th row, Emerson Fittipaldi, the 87 winner, and Stefan Johansson. In row 10, Brian Herta and Eddie Cheever. The 11th row, Alessandro Zampedri and Eliseo Salazar. The 12th row, Carlos Guerrero and Eric Bachelard. The 13th row, Marco Greco and Hiro Matsushita. And alone in the 14th row is Buddy Lazier. Now here we're ready to run 98 laps of competition as we take a look at the race analysis. That's 279.1 clicks here in Canada. For us, of course, it's 174.4 miles. The key is the fuel stop, expected to be at 35 to 37 laps. In the Nations Cup battle, well, it's the United States on top, but Canada hopes to close that gap here today. And then taking a look at today's field and the breakdown, chassis, engines, and tires. And in the Manufacturers' Championship right now, Fort Cosworth still on top, and Honda now beginning to score some points and to close in. Now let's take a look at the track here, 1.78 miles around, and the key passing areas are the very first turn down by the Princess Gate and turn 3, which is off of Lakeshore, one of the streets that they're using here at Exhibition Place for the circuit. A real trouble area is at turn 11, just before the start-finish line. They've been working with an overnight patch there. It's fast and very dangerous, even when it's in good condition. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
Paul, a quick update on Michael Andretti. He's had such a frustrating season. The frustration is continuing already. They're having a problem with his telemetry, getting to work and receive the needed information that governs things like fuel consumption here in the pits. So that's a big concern right now as the engineers work on it. Let's go to Jack Arute.
Well, Gary, many of the pit crews are very excited about the fact that the sun has come out once again. They practiced under overcast skies this morning, and many felt that they might have to change the downforce and the handling characteristics of the car, worrying about rain. But thus far, it's hot and humid, approaching 90 degrees, just like it's been through practice and qualifying.
All right, so we are ready to go racing here in Toronto. The weather forecast, though, has indicated that there's cellular thunderstorm activity in the area, and so we could have sunshine one moment and then a downpour the next. Now behind the PPG pace car, driven by Johnny Rutherford, they become aligned. The rows of 2 moving through the 10th turn under their final bridge and looking ahead to the starter. Green flag, Jacques Villeneuve jumps right out in front. Vasser comes to the inside, Tracy into 3rd place. Now down the long last section, heading for the next passing area on the course. The field through, nice and smooth. Boy, Jack gets a tremendous jump. Michael Andretti trying to make a move from the outside. And he comes around tail as the field now closes in. Here comes Michael. Michael tries to get past, can't get it done there. And already Brian Herta in trouble as he rolls off the edge of the course. Scott Pruitt looking very strong, running in third. Michael Andretti trying to catch up to him. Front of the field is still Jack. And this is the view back from Brian Herta's car as they try to either get him off the course or get him going. Getting back into competition. Sounds like the motor is running.
Herta snake bit here. This is where he had his big accident and his broken legs last year.
Jack Villeneuve leads the first lap as they scream across the line. That's the area that everybody seems to be concerned about, but so far it looks pretty good. Now the indication now that they're going to go full course yellow, and this is the reason. So that will change the strategy. Probably not this early in the race.
Not really. Everybody's in a good solid line. I think Scott really showed some real aggressiveness there in holding the position, third position, when Michael was trying to press. But other than that, I think everybody's in a solid line, and it isn't really going to affect the race strategy that much.
So full course yellow will come out, they say, though as yet we have not seen the flags that would indicate that. The field is lined up in competition. Jack Villeneuve, Jimmy Vasser, Scott Pruitt, Michael Andretti, Paul Tracy. Still looking. There was a report that they were going to slow this field because of Brian Herta's position. They have not done so. Okay, keep an eye on the right side of the screen. Herta actually got in contact with Stefan Johansson and then Eddie Cheever. Cheever and Johansson both able to continue on, and it looked like there was some contact with Eric Bachelard there behind at the same time. No full course yellow. They're going to keep in competition. It
must have been on one of those. They have 3 corners here that they can actually put the car behind the tar barrier and remove the car from the track without having to, go full course yellow. So it looks like that was one of the corners.
Yeah, and IndyCar has been fairly conscious of that. Sam.
Well, we saw waving yellow at this turn, and here is where they're trying to extricate Herta from the tire barriers. But they're obviously going to stay with that local yellow at that one turn, which is very good news for the race.
Except that it's taking away, Lynn, one of the key turns, one of the 2 areas that you can really pass.
That's right. I mean, but it's early, so I think that, they've just got to really stay clean here and stay in line and stay close to whoever they're going to try to get by.
As we ride with Bobby Rahal, just be aware of how rough this track really is. We spoke earlier about Paul Tracy and the trouble he has with his injured left foot, and it's because of the bumps that throw his foot around inside the cockpit that he's in such pain in the race.
Down past the first turn, the Princess Gate, you ride with Bobby Rahal. He runs in 7th position.
185 miles an hour down this back stretch, running along the shore of Lake Ontario. Then they slow for the tightest turn on the track right here, turn 3. You see Rahal following Bobby.
Rules for the waving yellow area generally say from the time you see it until the time you get past the incident or past the final yellow, you have to maintain position and cannot pass. Teo Fabi, number 33. Some that expect a great deal out of him today. He was quickest in the morning warm-up, currently runs 6. Paul Tracy closing down on his teammate Michael Andretti for 4th. And there's Brian Herta, the walk back.
I gotta say, it's great to see him get away from his car and be able to walk away from it this year, which of course he couldn't last year.
I would almost say that he's probably relieved at this point that he doesn't have to run here. Remember, he was in a terrible accident here a year ago. In fact, at first they said he would never walk again, let alone drive a race car. And here he is, not only driving the race car, but able to walk away from it after that first lap incident.
Now, here's the man who's in great pain, Paul Tracy. His left foot injured. His stitches have come loose twice over the weekend. He spent more time over in the medical tent than in the race car. He had a bad night Friday night when an alarm went off in his hotel. They all woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning. He didn't get back to sleep. He's on some painkillers. This man may last only 10 or 15 laps before the pain in his left foot really begins to overwhelm him.
But doesn't that speak to him, Sam, as a competitor, that he's out there, he's doing the best he can? Many others probably would have said, nah, I can't do it.
Paul Tracy is an awesome competitor. I've gained so much respect for him this summer. He had that brilliant drive in Portland with tonsillitis. at Elkhart Lake last week. He drove with the foot in great pain. Again, he's shown his colors this weekend. Paul Tracy is one of my major heroes, I'd say.
So Jack Villeneuve in the lead of the race with 5 laps complete. In second is Jimmy Vasser, then Scott Pruitt, then Michael Andretti, the man we were just talking about, Paul Tracy. Welcome back to Toronto, Ontario, Canada, Exhibition Place. The Indy cars. Jack Villeneuve leads them, followed by Jimmy Vasser and Scott Pruitt. Nothing has changed since we last left you, though they are running very close at the front. And we're still waiting to make sure that they get all of the course clear. It does appear that turn 3 is clear now, and they can run through here. One car to watch is Bobby Rahal. You're right on board with him right now. He's been moving back and forth at the back end of Teo Fabi in an ongoing battle for 6th place. Now you take a look back toward Teo Fabi from Paul Tracy's car. And let's go pit side and Jack Arute.
Well, the nature of this course, a temporary road course, should make for a 3-stop race to take on fuel to go the distance. And here's what's interesting about that. The team that's behind me, they service your current leader, Jack Villeneuve. Team Green has had incredible fuel consumption throughout the course of the season. They get as many as 3 laps longer than their competition. One of the reasons why, according to Barry Green, is the handling package that they have come up with. What they are able to do is go with less downforce, creating less drag. Therefore, they lead less horsepower to be able to go the same speed as the competition. Less horsepower being generated, less fuel being consumed. And sometimes that can play a critical role. We've seen it here before in Toronto, but we won't know until the onboard telemetry tells us what they'll have to take on for the last stop. But Gary Gerald for Michael Andretti, that onboard telemetry could be a problem.
Well, it's a significant problem. The telemetry brings a wealth of information from the computer on board the car by radio wave into the pits, and they have banks of computers down here that absorb the information, and the crew makes critical decisions. Fuel mileage is certainly one of the most critical. What they don't have now is the service of that telemetry here from Michael Andretti. They're working on it. They're not sure they're going to have it by the time this race ends. So in the meantime, every few laps, Michael will come by. He'll radio his crew, his fuel reading on his dash. They'll try to make the calculations from there. Paul?
Continuing to watch this close fight for 6. Teo Fabi, Bobby Rahal lined up behind him. Now we come forward as Jimmy Vasser begins to close on the leader, Jack Villeneuve, and Scott Pruitt closes in as well. Here comes Michael, here comes Paul, the rest of the field through. Look at Rahal as he moves back and forth. He's been doing this lap after lap on Teo. Back on board with Rahal.
Rumored split between Rahal and his longtime car owner, Carl Hogan. That's shaking the racing fraternity a bit. They may go their separate ways. They've been together 3.5 years.
Well, actually confirmed by Carl Hogan now, and in fact says he will have a team of his own for next year, and they will go their separate ways at the end of the season. Let's go to Gary.
Well, we talked again this morning with Carl Hogan about this situation. So many rumors about the possible split with he and Bobby Rahal. Carl wanted to make it emphatically known that split has not occurred at this point. It may happen by the end of the season, but the thing that he wants to report is both he and Rahal will definitely be involved in IndyCar racing in 1996. Who they're associated with, that's what remains to be seen.
Well, right now, Bobby Rahal, very racy. Look at him and Little Al and DeFerrin as they line up behind Teo Fabi. What a great battle this is.
Rahal is...
Whoa, we got a car off. That's Ribeiro.
Ribeiro in the Honda engine car. You see him there. That's that tricky turn at the end of the long straightaway.
I wouldn't want to be sitting there.
I think they can see him as they brake, though, Paul. That's Ampedri working his way by. Bachelor. And the others.
Question, of course, is did he keep the engine running and can he get it going again?
Well, he can get some help there. There are a number of course workers. I think the answer is he did not keep the engine running.
It's difficult to do with that 6-speed box, the sequential gearbox now, which is actually 5 forward speeds, but you've got to go down completely through the gears. You can't just grab a gear.
Yeah, so Lynn, what you're saying is as you're losing control and you're trying to go not just down to the gear you want, which would be second or first, you got to go through all the gears.
All the sequences.
Yeah.
Fight continues at the front of the field. Brian Herta, first one out with Gary Gerald.
Brian, the disappointment just continues to mount. What happened now? There was contact with Stefan Johansson?
Yeah, I'm starting to feel a little bit like a pinball out there. You know, Stefan moved to the right to block me going into the braking at the end of the straightaway, so I went to the left side, and when he saw me coming up the left side on me, he just moved over and put me in the wall. There's nowhere I could go.
Toronto has been a tough place the last couple of years for you, hasn't it?
Well, you know, it's been good to me and it's been bad to me, but you know, I'm not going to blame it on the racetrack. It wasn't its fault.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks.
Brian Herta, good sense of humor as Andre Ribeiro gets that Honda fired and gets back into the fight. At the front of the field, it is still Jack Villeneuve, Jimmy Vasser, and Scott Pruitt. There is Villeneuve. And that battle has spread out for a bit. Let's take a look up track.
The leading two cars there, Villeneuve and Vasser, are both Reynard cars, but they're set up very, very differently. I look at them in the pits this morning. They have different wheelbases, different weight distribution. They're very different. Here comes Ray Hall taking another look at Bobby.
Boy, this has been a great four-car fight for sixth place right from the green flag. Again, we ride with Bobby Rahal. Look at Little Al as he tries to get down inside him.
Rahal had his best race of the year here in Toronto last year into second place. It was his highest finish of the year, and it looks like he is again the master of this course.
You know what worries me? You catch a glimpse of it on that shot we just had. Little buildup of rubber on the outside of the turn.
Those marbles are going to start building up as the day progresses, obviously, and it's going to make the line much tighter and much cleaner, and some of this dicing around that you see Bobby doing won't be able to get away with.
And it's going to mean they're going to have to be a lot braver.
Lynn, you and Paul, of course, are talking particularly about Detroit a few weeks ago, where at the end of the race there was just one lane open for racing. But recently, the officials have decided to try to sweep the course whenever they possibly can when there's an incident. So hopefully it won't come to that. But if it does, it makes what we're looking at now in the early stages where passing is still possible all the more crucial.
Still riding on board Bobby Rahal.
You notice also the pavement changes in the track. That also changes the amount of grip that they get. So as you go from asphalt there to concrete, it really dramatically changes the grip. So the drivers are constantly having to adjust to that. And as those marbles build up, it'll also change the grip. You can see them sitting out there on the outside.
We talked earlier about the trouble area being turn 11 just before the start-finish line, where not only is it fast, incredibly fast, they've also had to do a lot of work on it, Lynn.
Well, they tried to do a repaving actually last night, and it didn't work. So what I found out is they had to take all of that off again and scrub it off and clean it off, and it just didn't take and it didn't work. So they're back to the same turn 11 that they had all weekend.
Newman Haas cars, Michael Andretti and Paul Tracy run 4th and 5th, Gary Gerald.
And our first report on handling characteristics for both Andretti and Tracy. Both are reporting a touch of understeer. They may be having to make changes to the setup when they come in for their first pit stop. But both drivers reporting the same condition. What we don't know is if both cars were set up identically at the start of this race.
Doesn't seem to be affecting performance at all. Fastest lap of the race, bit of a surprise, is Scott Pruitt at 107.6. He turned that on lap number 7. We're on the 15th lap right now. So third place Scott Pruitt, very much a contender here, especially considering that Jack Villeneuve has traditionally been the fastest car on the circuit, and certainly was a week ago at Road America. 15 laps complete. Well, you can count on it. We go away for a few seconds and everything seems to happen. Al Unser Jr. into the wall. Bobby Rahal and Little Al got together. Here's how it happened. They were in that close battle. They've been back and forth regularly, and then this.
Rahal appears to hold his line steadily. He's in the black and yellow car, but he turns in, and there's just no room for Little Al, who gets hit in the left front. Lynn, do you make that a racer's accident, or should Rahal have given Al more room?
Well, no, I think, Al still was clearly ahead. It was 3 abreast there going into that corner. Al Jr. took a huge risk, and he paid a penalty by taking that risk.
Rahal was ahead. Yeah, I agree with you.
I'm sorry, did I?
This puts just about paid to Al's hopes, I think, of retaining the championship, because just 6 races to go, he's going to drop way back.
Then, too, we had this situation as Scott Pruitt was chasing the 2 leaders, Vasser and Villeneuve. He just let the back end go on a corner, did a full loop, and was able to get it back going. But of course, he lost position because everybody at the front still running very close together.
Particularly devastating for this team. They had a one-off sponsorship for this race, which they had hoped to expand to other races. A bad performance here will hurt. And look at this, Paul.
Looks like the right rear totally gone from Stefan Johansson's car.
Aren't you supposed to have 4 wheels?
I mean, it looks like the hub carrier attached, though, so maybe the wheel just came off and it's something they can get going. That was the very part of the car that was involved in the contact earlier. Let's go to Jack.
Well, Paul, Scott Pruitt has made his way onto pit road for service, a full course caution. The problem was Pruitt was not loose. He was actually, now they've got a problem trying to get the car jacked back up because they are going to check for what could be an overheating problem. The report on the radio is he may have actually spun in his own water. So they're going to have to take the bonnet off and check that out. Let's check further up pit road with Gary Gerald.
And Jack, up in here, everybody, of course, taking advantage of the yellow. A wide pit window here, so they're now within that safety zone. They make the first stop. It could be tight to go the rest of the distance with one more stop. Everything looked routine here. Paul Tracy did come in, and he did get one turn on a front wing because he wants a different handling race car. Michael Andretti was still in the decision-making process before he came in. We frankly couldn't see his car to note whether or not they did make a change on Andretti's car.
Going back to Scott Pruitt for a moment, yes, right after he spun and got going again, we did see quite a display of fluid at the back of the car, so maybe that predicted this. Look at Johansson trying to get around.
It's too bad for Scott Pruitt because he had scored more points on these temporary street courses than anyone else and had a great chance today.
So Stefan Johansson tries to work his way back to the pits while we're under a full course caution. Scott Pruitt with what appear to be terminal problems in the back of the car. Is that right, Jack?
Paul, absolutely. A fitting at the front of the motor actually snapped in half, and that has taken Scott Pruitt out of this race in Toronto. Back to you.
So as Scott climbs out of his car after what looked like was going to be a terrific run, we are under the full course caution. Jack Villeneuve and Jimmy Vasser, neither one have stopped. We'll be back after these messages and a word from our ABC stations. For the title in the #1 of their tour's most prestigious events, J.C. Snead is now the leader after the 3rd round, and we'll go to Michigan for the final round of the Ford Senior Players Championship next, right here on ABC Sports. You know, it was 1 year ago at this very race that Michael Andretti last tasted victory. His hard-nosed style of driving has led to several incidents thus far in the '95 season. He has led the most laps, but he has yet to win.
I think in the first couple races, should have won them both, had problems, and you know, it just seems like that's the way the whole year's gone from then. I just try as hard as I can, and it comes across as being aggressive, and that's the way I am, you know, and sometimes too aggressive and get myself in trouble. You know, that's why I've won the races I've won. It's not because I've laid back.
It's okay. Change, well, I love you anyway. Every day something hits me oh so cold. You find me sitting by myself, no excuses that I know.
I'm really hard on myself, you know, I'm probably my worst critic. You know, these are the times that make you appreciate the good times, and so if we do get back there, and when we do get back there, I should say, it's going to be sweet.
Under the full course caution, Michael Andretti currently runs in 3rd place. The first 2 cars, Villeneuve and Vasser, have not yet stopped in the pits. Michael Andretti has made his stop. Now let's get some further updates. Jack Arute.
Well, Paul, finally getting out of his car, the Patrick team driver, Scott Pruitt. And Scott, we documented the fact that a water hose broke at the front of the engine. But this has got to be difficult for you, because what's more important to you than actually winning a race is finishing as many races as possible.
Well, we're in a run for the championship, and you know, every race is important. We were running very, very strong here. Back in Telepoint, we broke. We had the fastest race lap. You know, Patrick guys did a great job. The Firestone tires working good, and you know, Nike of Canada jumped on for this race, and we did a great job right up until we fell out of the race, and just a little disappointed we couldn't make it to the end.
When you don't get as much seat time and you have to go back to the Firestone engineers to give them input, especially on a temporary racing facility, where do you dig for the information now?
Well, we got a lot of information over the weekend. We almost made it to the first pit stop, which is, you know, only about 15 laps away. So we have a good baseline, not as good as we would have if we would have ran all race long, but there's some things we'll go back and look at.
Gary?
Jack, just a quick update. We saw Stefan Johansson's problem. As it turned out, on that flurry of pit activity under the yellow, The car dropped prematurely off the jack. They didn't get the right rear secure. He went out, lost it. He limped his way back in. They've made the change. He's now back on the circuit.
All right, we're still under a full course caution here, expecting it to go back green any time now. We might want to tell you that it is our intention to show the interval down of the cars on the leader lap, but right now our computer link is not working properly, and we don't have that information. Oh, look at this. Look at this.
Bring that red flag back out.
Well back before the start-finish line. 7 cars all involved. Cheever, Guerrero, Matsushita, Ribeiro, Johansson, looks like Bachelard, and 1 car that I can't tell. How did this all happen? Unbelievable. Talk about the concrete canyons. This may give us an idea. All moving back and forth, and Salazar gets hit from behind, looks like by Zampedri. Flip, whoa, whoa.
Oh my.
Carlos Guerrero flips over the top there, and of course that means a lot of lock brakes.
Over the top of Zampedri.
So that unidentified car is Salazar, and for the time being, no. Now we're back to full course caution once again. So just as they tried to get restarted, this happens at the back of the field. Let's take a look at it again.
Watch the top of your screen. Well, the great thing is that you could see that Zampedri was cleared by Guerrero completely, so he should not suffer any head or neck injuries.
Yeah.
That was a very scary moment. Imagine being in the car, being Zampedri, seeing it get very dark. We talked about clouds coming here, but that was a quick cloud.
Well, and it tells you too about how much inertia, how much energy is in these cars, because it looked almost slow motion until Guerrero's car number 22 was caught by the rears of Zampedri's car and literally flipped up into the air. Tremendous energy there. So Zampedri gets a little anxious, it looks like, on that restart, and sets off this chain reaction accident involving Zampedri, Salazar, Guerrero, and Bachelard. And on that, Jacques Villeneuve headed into the pits and made his stop. We'll be back. Back at the Molson Indy Toronto, Michael Andretti has assumed the lead on pit stops. We're still under a full course caution. And let's go back to the previous full course caution. Gary Gerald's with Al Unser Jr.
Al, 2 weeks in a row, it's an early out, and both times involving contact, this time with Bobby Rahal. Tell us how it set up from your view.
Well, we were trying Bobby on the inside, and really I kind of missed on my gears, and so at the last quarter of the straightaway, I'm on my rev limiter, and I just didn't have enough to go up in there, and laps prior he was leaving a little bit of hole because he kept trying Teo, and you know the train reaction would happen, and I tried to go up into a hole that wasn't there, and I locked him up, and I ran in the back of him.
Does this really seal it as far as your hopes of repeating a championship, or you still got enough time you feel you can make a run at this deal?
Well, you know, sure, we got plenty of time to make a run at it. There's a lot of points available, but you know, it makes it very slim, really, and so you know, we'll just see how they do today. If the guys behind win and so on, then it'll look better. But
give us a quick idea of the track conditions, and we know there was concern on the kink here at turn 11 after the repairs they tried to make overnight. What was the feel of this racetrack?
The feel was really good. The track was good. You know, as long as the rain stays away, it's going to be great. You know, the track was a little bit quicker than what we had thought of, and so you know, that's why we were a little bit short on our gears and everything. So. Well,
this emotional roller coaster is taking another nosedive. Thank you, Junior.
Yep.
All right, let's go to Jack.
Well, Gary, this caution is a good break for Team Green and your leader, Jacques Villeneuve, because just before it, in that last caution, they were extremely upset with IndyCar officials. Now, I asked Barry Green about it. You were upset because you didn't feel you had enough time after the pack up to pit?
Well, Jack, it's very clear on a road course we should be given the opportunity to pit. We're the leader. they should key the full course yellow off us. And we're very upset right now because IndyCar need to pay a little more attention to that. This is big business right now, and we can't afford. Now we're stuck in 5th position, and only by great pit work here on the players team are we still in 5th position.
Now, the other question, though, is also we understand that there might be a slight problem with Jack's helmet, and that in all of that pit stop strategy back and forth, trying to come in, maybe fell out of sequence, and you weren't able to repair the helmet problem that he was complaining about.
Well, it's not a major problem. The cables for the radio come a little bit loose, and we were going to tape them up, but it was so important to maintain a good track position there that we couldn't mess around with that. We had to get him back on the racetrack. I don't think that's a big problem.
But Lynn St. James, as you know, having sat in the cockpit of one of these, composure is so very important, and knowing that maybe a connection there for your radio isn't actually taped down properly, well, you could think about it a couple of times, couldn't you?
Yeah, but not really. You've got to race and not worry about stuff like that.
Cars involved in that crash, but take a look at Salazar. They're trying to get him going once again. Let's just remind you that now under the yellow, it's Michael Andretti, followed by Mauricio Gugelmin, who has not yet made his pit stop, the only one who has not. Now, next Sunday, the IndyCar action will continue in Cleveland. Last year's winner, Al Unser Jr., battles a marvelous field of drivers on the shores of Lake Erie at the Cleveland IndyCar Grand Prix. That's next Sunday here at 3 Eastern, 2 Central. But don't forget, we're going to be going on here on ABC from there to the Michigan 500. And then to Indianapolis for the Brickyard 400, and at Mid-Ohio, at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course in Lexington, Ohio. All that racing coming up here on ABC Sports. So still under the full course caution. This is the 4th place car, Bobby Rahal, as they begin to compress that field and hopefully can go green shortly. In the meantime, let us go to Jack Arute.
Well, Paul, you alluded to the fact that Bobby Rahal has been running so very strong. In fact, he has radioed into his crew that that is indeed the case. The frustrating thing, though, for Rahal has been track position. He's running strong, but not strong enough to overcome in some of the difficult passing areas on the racetrack. He was complaining most loudly about the combustion engineering car for Teo Fabi, but he was able to get by Fabi during all of this. He is currently shown in a podium position, but he has told the team no changes on the car. I'm extremely happy with the way it's handling. Let's check in with Gary Gerald.
Well, it's busy on pit road. Here's one of those that was involved in that wild melee as they came down to get a green flag. Eric Bachelard, you're obviously physically all right. What did it look like from where you were, and how did this all unfold?
I think there was a blind corner, and so right after that corner, all the pack slowed down a lot, almost stopped. So we were a bit surprised, you know, at the back of the field. And so I braked, went into the right, and I don't know, suddenly the car went sideways. I hit the wall. I don't know why. I don't know if somebody hit me from behind. I'd like to see on the tape, because really it was a kind of a surprise, because we were going so slow, and it was kind of spectacular, because then I could see Guerrero flying all over my teammate. And so fortunately everybody is okay, nobody's hurt, so that's the main thing. But it's a shame. We were running pretty well, and so both cars from my team, you know, the Peyton Cohn Racing, are out of the race, so it's kind of a shame.
Well, a surprise of the worst nature, but we're happy you're all right. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you very much.
Paul?
And it could, in fact, then be compression that happened in front of the videotape that we have, but it sure gave Carlos Guerrero a spectacular ride. And the good news is that no one was injured in this particular incident, bringing out our second full course yellow of the day. A lot of work for the record crews here. Right now it's Michael Andretti that is our leader, 28 laps complete. We're under the full course yellow. Still full course yellow, but you can see they intend to go green on the next lap. Let's talk with some others involved in that accident just a few moments ago. Gary Gerald.
Well, it looked like a rodeo, the Wild West, the Buck and Bronco. Carlos Guerrero, you took quite a ride. Airborne, you came down. You're okay. Was it a situation where it just stacked up on a blind corner? What happened?
The thing is that the guys at the front go fast and then slow down to make like a chain reaction. The problem is in a blind track, you never know where are they going to stop. So I already lost a little bit of space, so I was trying to catch them up. So when I come out of that right turn, blind turn, I saw Greco was sideways, and Samperi was starting hitting Salazar, and everybody was with the cars on the road. I couldn't brake, and I jumped over everybody, and that's the end.
Well, at least you landed all right and you're okay. Thank you so much. Let's swing over to Alessandro Zampedri. You were involved also. What was the view from your cockpit?
Basically, when I turned right in the blind corner, I saw my teammate car, Eric Bachelor's car, sideways in the track, close to the wall, backwards on the right side, and another car was in front of him. And Salazar in front of me just locked the wheels and braked. We were pretty close, and I locked too, but I couldn't miss him. So I hit him in the back, and that was it. But then after 2 seconds, I heard somebody hit me on the back very, very hard and just run over me, and that was Carlos. So I think, except for the guy that really caused the accident, there was nothing to do for us. I mean, it's a very blind corner, so you have no idea what can happen there.
All right, we're back racing. Thank you, Alessandro.
And the question now, are Michael Andretti's frustrations ready to come to an end because he leads the field back? The previous leader, Jacques Villeneuve, sits back in 5th place right now, and in 2nd place is Mauricio Gugelmin. Now look here, who are 2 cars directly in contest? On the top of your screen is Tracy, who currently runs in 3rd place. The bottom of the screen is Ray Hall, who is, whoa!
That's,
well, in right place at the right time for us, not for Paul Tracy. Now he's got the engine going. As soon as the field gets past, he should be able to get it around and get back into competition, but he was 3rd. Fighting with Ray Hall.
Tracy is traditionally so ambitious on these restarts. This time it may have gotten him in some trouble.
Now, Lynn, back in that, well, let's look at the replay first. There is Tracy as he gets caught up trying to get around Gugelmin.
Well, Gugelmin was trying to make a pass. Yeah, I think Gugelmin was really trying to make a pass there, I think, and come in. Because Gugelmin was running 2nd and Tracy was 3rd.
Gugelmin was going for the lead on Michael.
Sorry.
Gugelmin's down to the inside there, or does that quick, yeah, look at that.
Yeah. But, you know, that's...
Let's take a look at it from the onboard camera on Michael's car, on Tracy's car, excuse me.
That's Michael.
Just Tracy, yes, the black.
You could see Tracy coming together with Gugelmin.
Hate to say it, but I'm also thinking of Tracy having to use that left foot a lot. He had to use the clutch a lot there because you don't use the clutch that much when you're driving, you know, regular green laps. But boy, just to be able to get the car turned around, he had to do a lot of left footing.
The clutch in there.
Successfully got it done, though. It had to hurt. So we'll keep an eye on Paul Tracy as he starts to make his move back through the field. You'll see how it changes things here at the front.
You know, everybody's advantages works to somebody else's disadvantages. But here, Michael's back leading, as you mentioned, and this is the 7th race that he has led in Toronto and the 9 starts that he's had. And you know, Michael's in the position that Michael is used to being in, out front, you know, commanding a racetrack, and I think you're going to see maybe he's going to settle in here.
And he's led, of course, all but 2 of the races so far this year, the last 2. So this is a resumption of the beginning of the season where he'd be out front, often with a car with some kind of mechanical problem, but carrying on in the lead.
Michael Andretti continues to lead. Jack Arute.
Well, Paul, one of the things that we've seen with the Goodyear Firestone tire battle is the fact that at some racetracks, the rubber actually begins to build up in what they call little tiny balls out on the outsides of the groove. Remember, at Detroit, we had that problem. Well, Michael Andretti has radioed in that seems to be the case is what's happening here in some of the critical corners. He's a little bit concerned about the rough stuff that may be being thrown off of the tires. He's out front right now, but boy, if we begin to see that happen over and over again and they're not able to sweep the track under full course yellows, it could create some problems.
Well, Jack, Lynn alluded to that exact situation in her opening comment, where that it might become a one-track groove. If it did, the pit stops would be all the more crucial. I think we're going to see that with you guys down there.
Well, Sam, that's exactly what has got the Villeneuve team so upset.
Yeah.
Not the second caution that came out, the full course. That was a benefit to them. But they were upset about some of the problems that occurred with the first full course yellow. They felt that IndyCar had not reacted properly. IndyCar had no choice but to bring out the second full course yellow. But now they've radioed to their crew, make sure, Jack, that you try and stay in touch with the leader. Track positioning is going to be so critical.
And Michael is just building that lead. It's now 3 seconds. He's just building it. He's chipping it away at about a half a second a lap. But at the same time, I was looking at the course, is that Jacques is also capable of turning those speeds, but he's kind of locked back there. He's not going to be able to make a move necessarily. But Michael's pulling away.
Now currently we're watching Mauricio Gugelmin running in second place. But Gary Gerald, it's been 34 laps since he's been into the pits.
And they are thinking and hoping, because they've radioed in, or Mo radioed in, he doesn't think there's any damage to the car after that contact. He thinks it's all right. They're hoping to stay out and go to lap 40 for their projected first pit stop. Now, of course, if they get a yellow flag between now and then, the gamble will have paid off. If they have to pit under green, all that position that he gained will then, of course, be lost. So they're still rolling it here, but they've still got 5 or 6 laps before that number 40 comes up.
And you called Mauricio Mo. In fact, that's what the Pac West team calls him, Big Mo. And he is big, strong, and fast.
Well, he is also very good at this type of track, these temporary street courses. As you see Ray Hall menacing him from behind, Big Mo is third in terms of the points scored on this type of track, behind Pruitt and Al Unser Jr. So he is a master of this, and it's because of his background in Formula One, where they race often on tracks like this.
But he's slowing this group down right now. His fastest lap today has still only been 105.9, and that whole group of Ray Hall and Villeneuve and Vassar, he's slowing them down. So, and you know, knowing that he's got to come in and make that pit stop, I don't think Ray Hall will take a risk. At the same time, he's slowing them down.
Yeah,
let Michael pull away.
He's slower by nearly 2 miles an hour than some of the faster cars on the course. And there comes Villeneuve as he's closing in as well, as is Jimmy Vassar sitting just behind him. So this is the fight on the course. We'll keep track of it as we have some computer link back now from EDS. I want to thank them, and we can go through the running order with the intervals.
This is a gift to Villeneuve because it's enabling him to close up on Ray Hall and perhaps make a move on him under braking. You see Villeneuve in the blue car pursuing Ray Hall in the black car. Look for a possibility of Villeneuve trying to outbrake Ray Hall.
So 17 cars on the leader lap, and 1 chain reaction accident, 1 omission as a result of problems with the cooling line on Scott Pruitt's engine, and then of course an impact with the wall after contact with Bobby Rahal for Al Unser Jr. takes him out. So now you ride once again with that 3rd place car. Just ahead is Gugelman, who anytime, well, about 3 laps, we should see a stop by this 2nd place car. And as suggested, the question is whether or not there will be another interruption in the action for a full course yellow. Right now, it certainly doesn't appear to be a possibility. The leader, Michael Andretti, running at 107.3 miles an hour, his fastest lap thus far. So now 37 laps complete into the run here in the Molson Indy Toronto. We'll be back after these messages and a word from our ABC stations. Back at the Molson Indy Toronto, Andre Ribeiro just turned the fastest lap of the race at 108 miles an hour flat. Unfortunately, he's a lap off of the lead. Here is the interval leaderboard with Michael Andretti a full 5, almost 6 seconds ahead of Mauricio Gugelman, who they now say may be able to go yet another 3 laps before they actually make a stop on that car. Now in 9th place is this car, Robbie Gordon. We'll take a lap with him, Lynn.
Coming through that turn 11, that was the trouble area, but you can see he's got a clear track. 5th gear, but he has to gear down to 2nd gear through turn 1. So they say that they really want to make sure they hit that asphalt because it's so slick on the cement. Shifting up to 3rd, 4th, 5th. Top speed of about 185. Hear him downshift. You have to go all through the gears. You can't just quick down and get to 1st gear turn right here. It's a little uphill there. You don't actually see that on the in-car graphic, but that's an uphill, line uphill. There he's staying in 2nd gear. Shift into 3rd gear now. 4th gear. Downshift, down to 2nd. 2 blips of the throttle to get to 2nd gear. Up to 3rd. But he's going to stay in 3rd here for the left-hander. Stay in 3rd. Quick shift to 4th. Up to 5th, back to turn 11.
Almost flat out through turn 11 there. That's the scariest turn on the track. You can just about do it flat out, but you got to really pump yourself up for it.
Qualifying for sure in the race.
Yeah, they're going to take that turn out, we were enjoying it for the last time this year when they reconfigure the track next year. The track runs through the grounds of the Canadian exhibition grounds, and there are fascinating buildings all around it. One where you can go see horses, the Horse Palace, where they have dressage, places where they have horticulture and food and so forth.
Mauricio Guzman anytime should be in for his stop. And the keys, of course, going to be the move of the cars behind him, Rahal, Villeneuve-Vasseur. There they are. Guzman now moves toward the edge and drops into the pits. So Mauricio Guzman makes his first stop of the day, Gary Gerald.
And just a half lap back, they asked him on the radio. They said, Mo, do you want any changes? He waved them off, said no. So he's in for a cool drink. It'll be fresh Goodyear's, a complement of fuel, and we'll see how many position he loses in the process. We're at 12 seconds and counting. 14, and he's rolling. 14.9 is the time.
So Mauricio Guzman in and out. One car in trouble. But the rest of the field is able to get on through.
I just wanted to tell you, it was so amazing to see. As soon as Guzman came in, Rahal pulled away, Villeneuve pulled away. I mean, it was like they had to be so happy that he finally came in the pits.
Lynn, at the moment that Guzman made that stop, Michael Andretti was 8.98 seconds, about 9 seconds ahead. That was almost a freebie over the field because Mauricio was holding him up. Be very interesting to see. That was a critical part of the race, and when we think back over the events of the race, those 10 laps may very well be the story of the race. You know what I mean, Paul? That's a big lead.
Absolutely.
And that, of course, is what Barry Green was talking about, because he wanted his man, Villeneuve, to have been up front ahead of Guzman, and he would have been if everything had gone right.
Rahal's already picked up a second of that lead. He's cut it down to 7. So even if he's turning the same exact lap times, it would be hard to, cut it down. He would hold it, but he is going to be really pushing now. So
well,
Rahal's
you see Michael here, of course, he's in heavy traffic, too, so he's losing a big chunk of that. He's behind Hiro Matsushita. And you already saw him shake his fist. Hiro has a reputation for being slow on the track and not noticing the people behind him. There he is. You see, I mean, this is the kind of thing that drives Michael Andretti out of his mind. There, Hiro saw him and he's through.
So Michael is clear.
But how much did he lose? At least a second and a half.
At least a second, if not more. Michael Andretti comes back up to full speed. It doesn't appear that there is much traffic ahead of him now. Bobby Rahal, Jack Villeneuve, Jimmy Vasseur, and Teo Fabi round out the top 5, and they'll have to catch
his lead, right, Lynn? Down to 5 seconds.
But Rahal just turned the fastest lap of the race, 108.2 miles an hour. So he is gaining some speed there, not just traffic that's causing him to gain.
There he comes. Now he's in the same picture. There's Rahal with Hiro Matsushita between them. It'll be interesting to see. There's Villeneuve in the blue and white car. And, of course, Vasseur in the red and black, and then Fabi in the orange and white.
DeFerrin, Christian Fittipaldi, Robbie Gordon, Raul Boesel, and Danny Sullivan. So that's all of them through the field now. And Michael Andretti still leading, but Rahal is beginning to whittle away on that lead. Rahal really seems to like this track and perform so well here. Now, what about what's going on in the pits with Bobby Rahal? Jack Arute?
Well, Paul, let's ask his Carl Hogan. Carl, looks like once he got the green light, the fastest lap of the race.
Yeah, well, actually, we've been held up twice now. I mean, nothing against anyone else, but we have been held up. And Bobby's got a real fast car, and everything's going well. And now that he's got a clear shot, now we're going to go after Michael.
Now, what about fuel consumption? When you're running heavy traffic like that, how does that affect the fuel situation?
It's a little tough on the fuel right now. It's a little close. We'll just have to see how it goes.
Paul?
Well, of course, Jack, the reason that Bobby was able to go so fast suddenly there was when he was held up, he cooled his tires down. So he got a jump when Mauricio went out of the way.
But Michael Andretti leads it, but Rahal's taken 3, almost 4 seconds off of that lead. In third place, Jack Villeneuve and Jimmy Vasseur. You just got a view of Jimmy as he tries to close in. And I suspect the front of this field will be climbing down on Michael Andretti fairly quickly. 46 laps complete. We're back in Toronto. Tomorrow night, ABC Sports takes you out to the ballpark. See your favorite team in action on Baseball Night in America. Check your local listings for the game in your area. We'll have live regional coverage tomorrow at 8, 7 Central, here on ABC Sports. Michael Andretti still leads in the Molson Indy Toronto. But look at Herta, look at Villeneuve as they battle together.
We see a car running slowly. There's Vassar right behind.
Sorry.
You meant Vassar right behind Villeneuve there. Tight battle for third.
Well, Michael Andretti, Bobby Rahal, and then Villeneuve and Vassar. And Rahal just up the ante at 108.2 miles an hour. He is flying. In just 6 laps, he whittled 4 seconds off of Michael Andretti's lead.
Rahal, in addition to his win back here in 1986, has finished second and third any number of times. He's a real master of this track.
This is the fight on the circuit right now. Coverage, by the way. Oh, as Fittipaldi, Christian Fittipaldi, wiggles it back and forth under braking, almost loses it. Marco Greco looks like he's got a problem with the left front, makes it into the pit safely. I'm going to say the coverage here is brought to you by CBC Television of Canada.
That's the car we caught sight of moving slowly, was Marco Greco. There's Rahal.
Let's go pit side. Gary Gerald.
We've got a couple of updates here now. Hand calculators still being used by the Newman Haas crew relating to the leader, Michael Andretti. They did not get that telemetry fix. So again, every few laps he comes by gives them manually what he views on his dash a reading. We've wondered about track temperatures. We've talked so much about weather. The track temperature Friday was 130 at its maximum. 131 degrees Fahrenheit yesterday. They started the race today, Paul, at 107 degrees. And at last reading just 2 minutes ago, it was only up 1 degree at 108. What a difference the overcast makes, even though it's still hot and sticky down here.
Well, the cloud cover makes a world of difference to the track temperature, not so much from the ambient. Also, for the moment, it looks like that there's going to be no rain figuring into this race. At the start of the show, we suggested it might be, but while it's overcast, it looks fairly clear.
Yeah, the people that would have benefited the most from rain, DeFerrin and Christian Fittipaldi, are lying 6th and 7th. They're running well. Gary, it was interesting with those calculators out. Have you seen Apollo 13? It's kind of like going back to the old-fashioned way of doing business here.
Let's go back to Adrian Fernandez, 11th place. And Lynn, here you get a real good look at the suspension travel in the rear.
Yeah, you can really see the rear working and as it moves up and down and how much travel it is. And this track, the drivers and everybody are complaining how bumpy it is. You can see there as it went through a bump. And, it's so hard to get the setup right here where you have enough of suppleness, enough, clearance to be able to hit all the bumps at the same time to have a chassis as stiff as you want to be able to go as fast as it'll go. So a lot of bumpiness. And I was also watching when we had that in-car camera with Michael, how much the wheel just feels like it's going to jerk right out of your hand. And, in a super smooth track like the Speedway, you just think left and the thing turns left. And
just
here, if
off
you watch
of
your
Lake Shore,
hands, you'll see that right there. I mean, he's not turning the wheel doing that. That's just vibration, literally feedback, kickback coming through the wheel. It's making that, just jerk like it's going to jerk right out of their hands. So,
Lynn, do you wind up with sore wrists and stuff at the end of the race?
Well, not so much the wrist, but your whole grip, really is. You get actual blisters and all of that, and it's almost like you can't release your hand from the wheel because you have to hang on to it so tightly, but at the same time, obviously not so too tightly so that it doesn't jerk it out.
Still, you'd rather be down there, wouldn't you, than watching it from up here?
You got it. Oh, look at that. When he hits that turn 11 bump, I mean, it literally feels like the car's going to go left, right.
What is the satisfaction of driving? I mean, it looks brutally hard. In your words, I have my own ideas, but why is this such a great thing to be doing?
Well, it just challenges every part of your being. I mean, it's the physical, the mental, you park the emotion, you absorb, instead of us having our barrier be our body extension, it now is fully extends to the whole car. So it challenges every part of your being, and you don't even think about the pain that Tracy feels in his foot. You don't think about the fact that the wheel's ready to pull out of your hand or that you're getting beaten to death by the chassis. You're just making that car go as fast as you can and challenging yourself and your crew and everything, every part of your being to get the best there is to be gotten at that moment, which your hope is better than everybody else.
Leaving Fernandez as he passes the stadium now, coming back to the leader, Michael Andretti. 2.5 seconds ahead of Bobby Rahal, who just upped the ante again, turned a lap at 108.5 miles an hour. The fastest lap thus far. Back to the pits, Jack Arute.
Well, Paul, let's update you. We told you about Bobby Rahal trying to chase down the leader, Michael Andretti. Well, what about Jack Villeneuve, who was the early leader and was so fast in qualifying? Well, the only thing that they're concerned about right now is staying within sight of Michael Andretti. They feel so strongly about their prowess, Team Green, on pit stops, They feel they can pick up the 1 to 1.5 seconds that they will need to overcome the leader. We've seen so many times in the last couple of races that the race is won on pit road. This team feels like they may have a good shot. They still have one stop to go where they can try and overcome Michael Andretti's lead. Let's check in with Gary Gerald.
Teo Fabi runs solidly in 5th place. The first part of the race for Teo and his crew was not a particularly good one. They were having some difficulties with the pop-off valve that controls the amount of air that's forced into the engine to create the valuable horsepower. It has now settled down. They say it's working fine at this point. They're settled into a 5th place, but they were disappointed that they had that problem early.
Back to that battle between Michael Andretti and Ray Hall. Russ Thompson, our statistician here in the booth, has been tracking that battle. On lap 42, Ray Hall was 8 seconds back. We've just completed the 55th lap. He is only 2 seconds back, so he is really whittling away at Michael Andretti's lead and been turning some just incredible laps while he does that.
But let's not lose the significance of the situation, which is that Mauricio Gugelmin is in the way again. There's Vassar locking it up, fighting for control. That is a beautiful piece of work. A lot of the drivers have their cars set up in such a way with a lot of what's called negative camber, the tires tipping in a lot at the front, that gives them trouble. It's good for tight turns. I'll get into that in a second, but it makes it very hard for them to brake for these hairpins.
Another thing is that on a street course like this, is you always want a little more rear brake so that you're always sure to be able to turn it into the corner, but you get a little too much rear brake, and as the chassis gets lighter, as you get fuel goes away, then you can sometimes lock those rears up.
We do want to keep an eye on Vassar because about 3 turns ago we saw a bit of a spray at the back of the car. Now that could have been dust that he picked up close to the wall. It could also be a precursor to some problem in the engine compartment, so we'll keep an eye on him.
Vassar is under just an awful lot of pressure right now, but there's nobody cooler this season. Vassar has come up through the ranks, from sprint cars to Formula Fords to Atlantics, you name it. He's driven them all, and he's won in all the different categories, and he's taken his success in Indy cars this year with his first big win, of course, at Portland, very much in stride. He's a very calm, pragmatic man. You'll see it here. I would be surprised if he made a mistake under this pressure.
Well, Michael Andretti has just turned the fastest lap in the race, up to 108.7, as Joe Montana looks on with his wife Jennifer and watches Michael Andretti lead here. Back with the Indy cars in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Michael Andretti leads. 59 laps are complete. Jimmy Vassar, Jackaroo, was showing some display of vapor or something at the back of the car. Any idea what it was?
Well, according to Tom Anderson, here's exactly what it was. It was smoke from the left front brake. The report is from Vassar that it's literally locking up. Now, we alluded to that as being one of the problems when you're running on a road circuit. The brake bias is such that right now, when Jimmy hits the brakes too hard, it locks up that front brake and a little bit of smoke comes out of it.
Interestingly, Jack, he operates that brake with his left foot as the result of an accident a couple of years ago in Portland. When he broke his leg, he had to get back into the car. He'd always been a right foot braker, the way most of us are, but he had to, his right foot was still injured, so he started using his left foot. It's worked out fine for him.
And Lynn, brake bias, the brake pressure front to rear, is something that's adjustable within the cockpit.
Absolutely. You have a little dial that you can turn to the front to the rear, but that may work perfectly. At the same time, there can always be some malfunction where you've got a problem with one of the wheels. So it's adjustable, but at the same time, you got to make sure it's all functioning.
Boy, very careful when you do it. In that battle of fastest laps, Ray Hall just upped it again. 108.9, taking the honor of the fastest lap of the day away from Michael Andretti, who should be heading for the pits just any time now. When he does so, the assumption would be that Ray Hall would follow him in, and Jack Villeneuve will take over the lead of the race with Vassar following him, because it's been a little longer since they have stopped. Also, Teo Fabi, who currently runs 5th, should hit the pits, as well as most of the rest of the top 10, which is DeFerrin, Christian Fittipaldi, Robbie Gordon, Raul Boisel, and Danny Sullivan, all in the next couple of laps. So Jack and Gary will keep an eye out for that as we continue to watch Ray Hall and Michael and Ray Hall close.
We are looking at 3 very great drivers place 1st, 2nd, and 3rd in this race right now. Of course, Michael Andretti with his championship, his year in Formula One, his many wins in IndyCar speaks for itself. Ray Hall, also an IndyCar champion and Indy winner. And Jacques Villeneuve, the discovery of this year. Ray Hall, of course, the champion of the middle 80s. Michael Andretti of the early 90s, and now Villeneuve of the middle 90s.
Vassar being chased by Fabian DeFerrin. Vassar currently 4th. And DeFerrin heads into the pits. They're also laid out for the leader, Michael Andretti. He should be in shortly. In fact, you can see all up and down the pits, they now have the equipment laid out for stops that we anticipate for most of the top 10 here shortly. We follow Michael on what should be his lead into the pits. Michael with 4 victories here, the most of any man in IndyCar racing. Very comfortable on this circuit. Very happy with it. You can also from time to time get a glimpse of the